You already know when something is off. Before someone finishes their sentence, before they even look at you, something in you has already decided. You don't know why, you just feel it. And then you talk yourself out of it. That's the part nobody examines. Not the feeling, but the moment you override it. The moment you choose the words over the signal. The moment you choose comfort over clarity. That choice has cost you more than you realize. What if the problem was never that you couldn't read people? What if the problem is that you could, and you looked away? The Federal Bureau of Investigation spent decades studying not criminals, but people. Ordinary people, in ordinary conversations, across job interviews, depositions, marriages unraveling in real time, and negotiations where one side had already decided to walk away. What they found wasn't what Hollywood taught you. Liars don't avoid eye contact. Nervous people don't always have something to hide. And the calmest person in the room sometimes is the one you should be watching most carefully. 7 behavioral techniques, real, documented, used by trained FBI analysts that will permanently change how you read people. But I want to be honest with you before we begin. These techniques will not just change how you see others, they will change how you see yourself. And not all of that will be comfortable. Once you learn technique number 4, you will never sit across from anyone again and feel blind. But you may never sit across from yourself again and feel entirely innocent. Most of us were taught to listen to words. We were trained from childhood to trust language above everything else. But language is the part of human communication we consciously control. It's the performance. Joe Navarro spent 25 years as an FBI special agent trained in nonverbal behavior, and what he kept returning to was this. The brain cannot fully hide what it's feeling, even when the mouth is lying perfectly. Deep inside the brain sits the limbic system, ancient, hundreds of millions of years older than the rational mind. It responds to threat and discomfort before your conscious brain has even finished deciding how to react. It doesn't ask permission, it just responds. So while someone's mouth is carefully choosing the right words, their body, their hands, their posture, their facial muscles are responding to something else entirely. That gap between what someone says and what their body is already confessing is where the truth has always been. People rarely reveal themselves through confidence. They reveal themselves through what breaks it. Technique 1. Establish the baseline first. Everyone has a behavioral baseline. The way they naturally sit, breathe, gesture, and hold eye contact when there is no pressure on them. Some people touch their face constantly even when relaxed. Some people talk with their hands. Some have a flat voice that sounds dishonest even when they're telling the complete truth. If you don't know someone's baseline, you'll always be reacting to your assumptions about them, not to them. Imagine a job interview. You ask about a gap in the resume. The candidate immediately touches their collar. Most interviewers flag that. Nervousness, something to hide. But what if they've been touching their collar the entire conversation? That's just what they do. The collar touch means nothing. But then you ask something completely neutral, and for the first time in the whole conversation, they go completely still. No collar, no gestures, nothing. That is the tell. Not the movement, the disappearance of it. Navarro called this freezing behavior. When something is wrong, the body doesn't do more, it does less. It tries to become invisible. Most people spend conversations looking for fire. The trained eye looks for the moment the air stops moving. Technique 2. Pacifying behaviors reveal the real stress map. When the limbic brain registers discomfort, it sends one signal: soothe yourself. The body obeys before the mind can object. FBI analysts call these pacifying behaviors, unconscious, self-comforting gestures that activate under stress, touching or stroking the neck, a long exhale through puffed cheeks, pulling a collar away from the throat. The neck is particularly significant. Its skin is dense with nerve endings that respond to touch with a calming effect, a biological self-regulation mechanism that's been wired into us long before language existed. When someone strokes their own neck, their nervous system is trying to calm itself down without telling you why. Here's what most people miss. It is not the gesture that tells you something. It is the question that caused it.
A man is being questioned about a company contract. Calm, composed, good eye contact. He's answering everything steadily. Then they ask about one specific transaction, one date. His hand moves to his neck before he even opens his mouth. 2 fingers, lightly, against the front of his throat. 2 seconds, then gone. then a calm, composed answer. Most people watching would have missed it entirely, but the analyst wasn't waiting for the answer. They were watching what happened in the body before the answer was constructed. That pre-verbal window between a question landing and a response beginning is the most honest moment a person ever has in a conversation. After that, the performance begins. The pacifying behavior is not the answer. It is the map that points you to where the real answer is being protected. Technique 3. The 7 micro-expressions that cannot be faked. In the 1960s, psychologist Paul Ekman studied isolated populations in Papua New Guinea, people with no shared visual media with the outside world. He showed them photographs of strangers expressing different emotions. The recognition was almost universal: fear, anger, disgust, contempt, surprise, happiness, sadness. 7 emotional expressions identical across cultures, continents, and centuries, and almost impossible to fully suppress. Even when someone is consciously performing calm, these 7 states leak through the facial muscles for fractions of a second. Between 1/25th and 1/5 of a second. The most significant in everyday life is contempt, the only asymmetrical facial expression. A slight, one-sided tightening at the corner of the lip, pulling upward and back on one side only. Less than half a second, then it's gone. Contempt doesn't signal anger. It signals something quieter and far more corrosive. The belief that the person across from you is simply beneath you. You have seen it. You just didn't have a name for it. Think about the people whose contempt you absorbed without identifying it. The dismissal you felt but couldn't prove. The moment something shifted in someone's expression and you registered it as a feeling and then talked yourself out of it because you had no evidence. You had evidence. You just weren't trained to read it. The shift is not complicated. Hold your attention on someone's face for a half second longer than feels natural. Not staring, just staying present long enough for what's underneath the performance to register. That extra half second costs nothing, but it changes everything you see. Technique 4. Proxemics. Space is a confession. Anthropologist Edward Hall identified 4 zones humans naturally enforce. Intimate space, within about 18 inches, reserved for people we trust completely. Personal space, up to 4 feet, for close friends and family. Social space, up to 12 feet, for colleagues. And public space, beyond that, for strangers. These zones are not rules, they are boundaries the nervous system enforces automatically. Think about a meeting where someone walks in and sits at the far end of the table. The room is half empty. Closer seats are available, but they chose distance. And they chose it in relation to one specific person. Most observers read that as shyness, introversion. But distance chosen deliberately relative to one specific person is not preference. It is a position statement. And when someone moves incrementally closer than the context demands, not aggressively, just testingly, they are watching whether you hold your ground or accommodate them. That physical negotiation is a dominance conversation happening in complete silence. Stop reading words for 30 seconds in any group setting. Just watch how bodies arrange themselves. Who positions near whom. How those arrangements shift when certain topics enter the room. You are not just reading people. You are revealing yourself through what you notice and through what you allow. Technique 5. Linguistic tells. How language creates distance from truth. FBI interview analysts call it verbal distancing. When people describe something genuinely lived, something true, something they own, they use direct first-person language. I saw, I said, I felt, I did. But when they want to disassociate from something, guilt, responsibility, a feeling they're suppressing, the I disappears. Actions occur without actors. The decision was made, not I decided. Mistakes were made, not I made mistakes. It happened, not I did it. 2 colleagues discuss a project that failed. The first says, I made the wrong call on the timeline. I underestimated the scope and I should have caught it earlier. The second person says, the timeline was problematic from the beginning. There were communication issues. Things didn't come together the way they needed to. The second person said nothing technically false, but there is no person in their version of events. No subject, no one who chose anything. The failure just materialized, like weather. like something that happened to them rather than something they participated in. Now sit with this. Think about the last story you told about something that went wrong in your life.
Who was the subject of that story? Most people do not want the truth. They want a version of events that leaves their self-image intact. The absence of I is often the loudest thing in the room. Technique 6. The freeze response. Stillness that screams. Most people know two responses to threats: fight, flight. There is a third, older, quieter, and far more commonly misread in everyday life: freeze. In the modern world, the freeze response doesn't look like fear. It looks calm. An employee is in a performance review, slightly fidgety, adjusting in the chair, shifting weight, nodding along. The normal, low-level restlessness of someone mildly uncomfortable. Then one specific question lands. Walk me through what happened on Thursday. And they go completely still. No adjusting, no blinking, no movement at all for 3, maybe 4 seconds. Then a calm, composed answer. Most managers would read that pause as thoughtfulness, gathering their thoughts. The behavioral analyst reads it as a body that just tried to become invisible. And here is what makes this genuinely unsettling. The freeze is not a sign of lying. It is a sign that a topic landed somewhere deep, somewhere the person has not finished resolving, something they don't fully want to face or are not fully comfortable with you knowing. Some of the most important moments in your relationships have probably triggered a freeze in you, and you called it composure. The body always knows what the mind hasn't yet permitted itself to say. Technique 7. Eye blocking. The body's attempt to unsee something. Let me dismantle something first, because this myth has created more false confidence than almost anything else in this space. Looking up and to the left does not mean someone is lying. That claim spread widely through neuro-linguistic programming in the 1980s and 1990s, was comprehensively debunked in a 2012 study published in PLOS One by behavioral scientists Richard Weissman and Caroline Watt. No reliable correlation. None. The reason the myth survived is simple. People want a clean signal, something that confirms what they already suspect. And that desire for certainty, that need to feel like you already know, is exactly what makes you easier to deceive. The real signal is eye blocking. Any behavior that physically shields the eyes or reduces visual input in response to something emotionally heavy. A prolonged, hard blink at the exact moment a specific statement lands. Covering the eyes briefly with a hand. Looking down, not to think, but to avoid. Pressing fingertips against closed eyelids. When the brain encounters something it doesn't want to process, an accusation, a truth it wasn't ready for, it instinctively tries to stop receiving information. The eyes close. Not metaphorically, literally. Watch someone receive news they were dreading. There is almost always a long blink right at the moment the information lands. Before the response, before the composure is assembled. That blink is not processing. That blink is a flinch. The face recovers quickly, but it always reacts before it recovers. Here is what all 7 techniques share. They are not about power, because the people who are hardest to read are not the best liars. They are the people who have suppressed their own emotional experience so thoroughly that even their body has gone quiet. And that suppression is not strength, it is damage. The most dangerous lies are the ones people tell themselves calmly, the ones rehearsed so many times they no longer feel like lies, the ones that show up in the baseline as personality, as composure, as confidence. Most of us walk through our most important relationships reading only the words, only the performance, and we wonder why we were blindsided. The answer is almost never a lack of intelligence. It is a failure of presence. And presence is where it becomes personal. Because the real question underneath all of this isn't whether you can read other people. It is whether you can stay present long enough to let what you see actually matter. Silence is dangerous because most people cannot survive inside it honestly. Before you close this, sit with one question. Think about the last conversation where something felt wrong.
where what someone said and what their body did didn't match. You felt it. What do you think you were actually reading? Drop it in the comments. Not what you wish you'd said, just what you noticed that you couldn't name at the time.
And if there is a specific technique from this video that you want to understand more deeply, one you want to apply to something real in your life right now, write it below. I read the comments, and the questions that come from real situations, not abstract ones, those tend to become the next video. Most people will finish this and feel informed. They'll notice a blink in the next meeting, they'll watch someone's neck, and then they'll forget. Not because they're careless, but because watching someone else is easier than what this video is actually asking. Which is to sit with the possibility that the behaviors described here, the verbal distancing, the freeze, the pacifying gesture, are not just things you've seen in other people. They are things you do when you're afraid, when the truth costs something, when holding your face still feels like the only protection you have left. The only people who can truly use these techniques are the ones honest enough to first recognize these patterns in themselves, not as weakness, but as information. Because once you can read the gap between what you say and what you feel in yourself, that gap becomes almost impossible to miss in anyone else. You will not be able to unsee this. That is not a threat. That is what learning actually feels like. And if this kind of truth, the kind that doesn't make you feel better but makes you see clearer, if that's what you came here for, then you already know where this channel is going.
There is more, and it only gets harder to ignore.